start recording. And why don't we just quickly run through stuff if there's anything to discuss. Like one thing is just as a hiring update, the steering committee hopefully will approve the job description for the web monitoring coordinator tomorrow. And then there's an internal candidate interested in the job as well. The steering committee should be voting on the internal hiring process tomorrow. So hopefully if those things both get approved, we can move forward with that process. Regarding the software developer, I got a proposal which I can share with the group from David, and we're planning on bringing him in. Hey, Rob. I was just giving you a quick update on the hiring. Basically, we're hopefully by tomorrow we'll have the go-ahead by both the job for the project coordinator, the job description and the internal hiring process should get approved by the steering committee tomorrow, and then we can move forward because we have an interested candidate who's internal. And then the hiring committee, the web monitoring hiring committee just met today, and we're planning on bringing in David, the consultant who's worked with IA, to have a conversation. He gave us a proposal which I can share with the group, and it looked good to us. And we just wanted to ask him some questions, and we can sort of open the floor to the development team as well if there are questions, and we can invite you to that call as well if anyone's interested in attending. Hopefully be tomorrow, later in the day, East Coast, probably early evening, but we'll see what his availability is too. He's based in Denver, and Marcy's in California, so it'll be shifted later probably.
What happened with Kit?
Kit, I reached out to her a couple of times and never heard back from her. I can reach out again, but I haven't heard from her for quite some time, even when we were sort of ramping up the hiring.
Okay.
And we also got a couple other, we got some other interesting applicants. Two were from the Code for Lib news group, which is pretty focused because they're programmers interested in libraries. And one person worked on this project called archiverspace.org, which is like a Java application. And then we had this other applicant that was interesting from DC, who's a Python programmer, and she's done like tutorials at PyCon recently, like a few weeks ago, which is cool. And she actually knows Liz Berry and Jeff Warren from Public Lab. So yeah, I mean, we didn't get that many applicants, but the places we were posting were pretty targeted. So the responses we got were really good. We got like two people from like offshore that, again, I think I mentioned this totally, like they didn't follow the directions. They like their cover letter was generic. And, I don't think based on how we work, being 12 hours away, time zone difference probably isn't going to fly. So, but everyone else who responded were like pretty targeted and right on and interesting. But having a connection to the Wayback Machine sort of, I think is a pretty big plus in the pro column. Okay. So that's the main project manager updates for me. Totally, do you want to give a quick update and then we can go into some of the technical adventures we've been having this week?
Sure. There's not much to report other than if you were at the last analyst meeting, you'll know that the federal government's up to kind of the same shenanigans. Federal Transit Authority removed the climate change page. Climate change changes sustainability. I feel like that's just like a classic edgy report. Let's just release one about every agency.
Right.
So yeah, Federal Transit Authority is up next, and some good reports actually coming through. And DOE's website is a goddamn mess. They're making it really hard to know if initiatives are being merged into other things or not. And so gonna start working with an E&E News reporter to figure that out, I think. But other than that, I think the research team is also working on changing and updating sort of the metadata classification for important changes. Looks like there's some good progress there. But yeah, follow along on the research channel if you're interested.
Great.
Oh, and Washington Post is waiting on a source who is, quote, hiking in the Amazon, unquote, which is a pretty good excuse.
What are they waiting on? Sorry.
They told me that they're still trying to track down somebody who is, quote, off hiking in the Amazon. Which would be awesome if they actually went to track them down, because they're like, these website changes are so important.
Yeah.
Like, we need to get your comment on this.
Right. On a hilltop in the rainforest.
What do you think about this change on the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health website?
Right. This feels very like Deep Throat in the, like convening in a darkened parking lot, but it's a rainforest instead.
Yeah, I'm excited that there's actual reporting going on, but it's obviously not ideal that it's such an extended timeline. I think that's it. And we should expect a report from Climate Central shortly about assessing risk broadly on climate change resources.
Great. In terms of dev updates, just quickly, I know Dan was connecting with Francis. Francis was away at a conference last week. Since they're not on this call, I'll circle back with them after the call to get an update if they were able to connect on the Ansible stuff. But I haven't heard back from them in the last few days. Otherwise, other analyst updates? I mean, developer updates?
I can go quickly. So I was working on the remove formatting checkbox, and then Rob helped push it over the finish line. And then he demoed it at the analyst meeting as well. Yeah. And Rob, you want to talk about the demo a bit?
I demoed the checkbox. I checked it and I checked it.
Yeah. I think it was well received, right? It seemed well received, and we're just waiting on their input. I don't know if there's anything else.
I can speak to that and say that it was well received, and I think those are like exactly the type of things that are actually going to make website monitoring useful in ways that work, like for people who are trying to do this detailed analysis like we are, which like Versionista falls short in a lot of these ways. So thank you for paying attention to these important, seemingly small but actually important details.
Yeah, and it's I think sometimes too where they see it and it's after they build it into their practice and they find use for it, like just like the outgoing links where after a while it's like, oh, this became very useful and I use this all the time now. So like just with demos, sometimes they don't understand the implications on their workflow and they see the improvement down the road. So excellent. Sorry I missed it, but that sounds great. Rob, any updates?
Not really. All I have had time to do this week is fight terrifyingly bad fires. I guess I'm still doing. Yay! But at least we fixed it. Security.
Is that getting access to Versionista's API? Is that, you think there's like any hope there?
It doesn't have one. I mean,
Yeah, it's not access, it's existence.
Well,
or at least it doesn't appear to have one. There's no documentation that one exists or anything. And I presume from the fact that every time Peter Bray is like, hey, what can I do to help you? And I go, well, you could write an API, even if it were really dumb and only did the really basic things we needed. It would, I mean, it would be a small amount of work for you. I mean, it would be work, right? But it would save all of us on both sides of this equation a giant pile of headaches. And he goes, I'll take it under advisement, and then does nothing. So I assume one doesn't exist, and the hump of like making something basic is big, and something he's not doing because there's nothing there at all. So
Did you notice they added the like feedback portal on Versionista? I don't know if you ever like logged into Versionista.
I do. It's mostly only when I'm trying to figure out what went wrong. Where is there a feedback portal?
It's like a little,
Little chat
pop-up
bubble.
on the bottom right. And I actually messaged him today with some suggestions, and he responded within like 5 minutes. And I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna add that to our list. And
That's the same thing. It's on the list that I'm never gonna do.
he actually responded quite substantively to all my points. But
That's good.
because I guess their AI, they have some like algorithm to decide how often to ping pages, and sometimes it's going very slowly. So he's like, oh yeah, okay.
It seems like that's okay. That's interesting to know. I would think if you hadn't explicitly set a crawl, because there's a control for setting crawl time. So this explains all the questions about like why didn't it crawl when it like supposed to crawl every 2 days. That crawl time setting actually does nothing. It's just whatever the algorithm determines. That's good.
The goggles do nothing.
That's good
I
to know.
can send you exactly what he said, in case if you're wondering.
I mean, feel free to. I mean, I guess it doesn't really affect anything. But yeah. Okay. I mean, you should also tell him that one thing he could do to reduce the number of the impact on third-party servers is to, if he's got multiple people requesting the same URL, then not to deduplicate that.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
That's crazy talk.
Yeah, it's just mind-bogglingly ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah.
It's also the thing when they say AI to determine when I put like AI, like it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's an algorithm, but it's like, I don't know.
An algorithm is not necessarily an artificial intelligence. Yes.
Yes.
Also ML and AI, which are also not the same thing, but hey,
Right.
we'll just use the same word for all of them.
Right. It's, who's at this point.
But just so I get the timeline right, he wrote that message after the hot fix came through and was like, there's going to be more updates.
Yes.
Okay.
I just haven't had time to like super closely monitor.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Right. But that's a first. Usually he doesn't give a heads up, right? Usually it's just like you wake up and like stuff has changed and.
Oh, for sure. Like that was wonderful to have. Like I don't mean to,
Better
like,
than nothing. Better than nothing.
That's extremely wonderful to have.
We're on new ground.
But yeah, it's still not. It's still one of those like you look at that message and you're like, thank you very, very, very much for letting us know. But also like the thing we've asked for a bunch of times that make you not have to worry about us this way. And also make it easier for us.
Right. It's almost like sort of like a bad relationship.
Yeah, a little bit maybe.
Anyway, okay. I know it's funny, but I digress. So, okay. So I'll try to, I'll circle back to get an Ansible update and share with the group as well. And then, yeah, I'm still trying to work on some of the documentation. It's just the hiring stuff has been taking a lot of my brain space. In the final other news I forgot to mention is I think our all the reports and the money has been spent on Versionista, et cetera. So I think Climate Central Packard is done. And so that's like another milestone we reached just administratively. And we can sort of focus all our attention now on the current Packard grant and Doris Duke as well. In terms of the inner archive pages, I haven't heard anything from GSOC, but I'm presuming they're still working away. Toli and I did have a call with Mark yesterday, Mark Graham from the Internet Archive, and it was just a check-in, just to sort of say, like, we're talking to David about doing consulting and trying to see what other resources he had. Basically, the gist of it is, in terms of his developers, they're pretty tapped out, which it's not surprising for a nonprofit trying to boil the ocean with nonprofit funds. But it was good to sort of check in with him on just how we can collaborate more. He posted, I think, in the Scanner, the Scanner Inner Archive Slack channel, a link of they're working on an interface for diffing, and they've obviously looked at not just Versionista but our stuff too, because there's are you on that, Kevin? If not, we can get you.
Oh no, I saw it too.
Okay.
It said
Yeah.
they're definitely using like the UI source code for stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's open source.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Mark realized that, but I sort of mentioned it to him just so he knew where some of the stuff was coming from. In a yay open source kind of way. Because when I saw especially when I saw the outgoing links feature, I'm like, that is edgy secret sauce. So it's great.
I mean, I will say I feel less bad about any concerns about money or payment or whatever if they're making heavy use of our code.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes.
So even Stephen Fair trade-off, I have no qualms or concerns.
I have to say he was like very, I don't know how genuine it was, but he was very excited about the like arc of the project as like, this is exactly how open source projects are supposed to work. Like, you guys made like such amazing, you guys are like perfect users, and you've made such amazing progress on the scanner software, and like now we get to like build on that and work on that together. The right words to say at the very least. And the fact that they're having a channel dedicated and have some people pointed at it, even if it is somewhat ephemeral with GSOC, it's a good sign. I would have, I guess, frankly, I would have more affirmative, like, let's do this now. But I think we can try to entangle more and we can generate more momentum, especially with the resources coming in.
Right. And a couple of times, even before we got the grants, we suggested, like, if we have money, can we, buy your developer time? And I think they don't really do that. They were pretty hesitant on those kinds of arrangements. So, and that just might be on their side, that they just, it just works better for them to keep it all within house or something. But
I think that's reasonable. I mean, if I were them, I would also say no, like, regardless of funds or anything else. It's really hard when you have an employee to ask them to work on somebody else's stuff and still manage their time effectively.
Right. Particularly if it's part-time, as we saw with like Dan at Climate Central. It was difficult for him to get carved out when he has like, direct bosses telling him to do stuff. And then, he's got this side thing he's supposed to be working on a portion, what he's going to prioritize. So I totally agree with you, Rob.
Yeah, I think if the product was really the same exact thing, it might be a different conversation. But it sounds like they're thinking about things somewhat differently than like the scanner use case, although they're obviously very connected. So yeah, that wasn't the answer he gave. And when we did ask him like flat out, like, is this a possibility? He said no.
So you can always ask and be ready for no.
Good to have the clarity there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's all I have. Any other comments, things to share?
Rob does.
Sorry, I'm just fascinated looking at the bundled source code for this Webpack thing. I'm happy to give a breakdown of any of the issues if I didn't do that effectively in Slack. Otherwise, let's not waste time on it.
Just curious about the like the DB, the fuzzing that was happening. Do you think that was just like somebody scanning for vulnerabilities, or just somebody like maliciously trying to attack us, or just we can't really tell probably. Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Could be either. I mean, it's
Yeah.
effectively the same thing
Yeah.
until they start maliciously making use of it.
Yeah. Right. And then
They're still doing it, but we have
yeah.
the vulnerability is patched now,
Okay.
so probably it will stop.
Okay. Cool.
We'll see.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, because the vulnerability was fairly recently reported, right, or made public.
Yes. So when I was fixing it, was that Monday morning?
Something like
It
that.
had only been announced with the patch released 3 days before.
Okay.
Which I should have caught. I should have had an email that said, yo, CVE on your code. But either way, like it was still pretty fresh.
Yeah, thanks for your work on that. Cool. All right. I think we're good for now, and I'll circle back with others and update as accordingly. Great. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody. Thanks everyone. See ya.